Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Breaking Point podcast. Today, we are here with Jeanne Retief. Jeanne is the founder of Figgi Skincare. Figgi, and that is a skincare brand which endeavors to reconcile skin and mental health. Would that be a good way of putting it?
That's a perfect way of putting it.
Perfect. So, Jeanne, tell people about. Well, let's go into Figgi, and then we'll go into your past a bit afterwards.
So, Figgi is a real holistic approach to managing your anxiety. There are many external symptoms to anxiety, one of which for me was very sensitive skin. But then, of course, you also need to deal with the internal things that trigger your anxiety. What are the triggers? Understanding your triggers and understanding how to kind of peacefully exist with your anxiety. If you've been diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, or if you've just gone through perhaps burnout, grief, loss. So Figgi Soul offers online courses that I present based on my own life experience with panic disorder on how to get back to a space where you can live your life in the best way you can, understanding this is how you're wired, and then the skincare helps with the sensitive skin. So it helps with the inflammation, it helps to calm, it helps to soothe, and these two work together.
That's great. It is. I suffered a lot with skin, sort of with acne particularly growing up, and still sort of do on and off, as do many young people, increasingly more and more. And it's sort of understood that the skin is a reflection of what's going on internally, in the sense of how things are health-wise internally. But we don't treat it. We don't treat it. We never look for the root cause of skin issues. We always treat the symptoms with various pharmaceutical creams and stuff. So why, going down this journey that you've gone on, have you wondered what is the link between like internal health, the food we eat, and our skin, the way it manifests in our skin? And why do you think people separate the two? Why aren't there more doctors going, oh well, maybe you should look at what you're eating and your environment, as opposed to just treating it as a separate entity? Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And there is this movement towards what is called psychodermatology, which
That's cool.
focuses more on why this is happening to your skin, but it's very new and there's very few dermatologists that practice that.
Yes.
When I was diagnosed with panic disorder, I severely mismanaged it. I did not want to accept my diagnosis. So when I calibrated my path and started Figgi, one of the things that was key to me was arming myself with as much knowledge as possible towards my condition so that I could understand myself better, my symptoms better, my triggers better, and so I could understand how to correctly formulate the skincare. And it's so strange because the skin is our largest organ.
Yes.
And obviously the organ most visible to the world. So it's weird how we don't make that connection. Even now, when I tell people there's a link between anxiety and your skin, they're so surprised. Because we think about so many other, we think about our gut, we think about the gut microbiome, we think about heart health, liver detoxification, all of these things, but the skin is kind of the last thing that we think about. It's so affected by everything that we do. So for example, if you have an anxiety disorder, your brain knocks out kind of this alarm glass to put you in that fight or flight mode. And when that happens, a whole bunch of cortisol and adrenaline is dumped into your bloodstream. And that shoots to all of your really sensitive nerve endings because it's trying to send this message to your body. You need to move, you need to protect yourself, you need to act. And a lot of the super sensitive nerve endings is just beneath the first layer of skin. And that's why you start getting this feeling that you're burning, that you're itching, tingling sensations, or why you go red in certain spots when you rub it too much. People who have eczema, rosacea, acne tend to, if they think back on it, realize that a period where they were super stressed or really anxious, it seemed to be worse. And that's why, because it really is a connection between the brain, the gut, the body, the nerves, the sympathetic system, the nervous system. It's all affected. And it's the same with an anxiety disorder. Everything is affected. It's not just that you get panic attacks. It's that you have irritable bowel syndrome, you have gut issues, you have sleeping issues and insomnia, are sensitive to the environment around you, sounds, noises, lights, anything that's overstimulating. It all works together. And then it just makes sense that obviously your biggest organ is going to be severely affected. I hope that answers the question.
No, that makes complete sense, and you bring up that there is still a sort of prehistoric view from certain doctors that when you look at the way that medicine has progressed, there, what's it called? I think it was no, that's not it. We used to have a distinct separation between mind and body, and it was believed that the mind and the body were completely separate, and the head just sat on top of the body, and there was no link. And then it's got a term, but I can't remember what it is, and it was this sort of sudden acceptance, not sudden, but this gradual acceptance that actually the mind and the body were interlinked, and that everything impacted one another, and it was one entity. But there is still this degree of sort of separation and this incorrect acceptance that not everything in the body is connected in some way. And it's like when dermatologists say, well, do you have like a skin certificate or something? Did I read that right? You have.
Yeah, I went back to school to do my certificate in cosmetic chemistry so that I could formulate it and understand how everything works together and what the different ingredients do and so on. Yeah.
So I can ask you some questions on queries that I have, sort of dermatological questions. But it's like when doctors say, "Oh, diet doesn't impact skin." I just sort of think, what are you on about? Either A, why is there no research done into diet and skin? I have the reason behind that is because that would lead to data that would not benefit the pharmaceutical companies because they can't profit off. If it turns out that diet is linked to skin, then people could just stop eating certain foods, and they wouldn't need as much medical intervention, pharmaceutical intervention. But what did you discover? Do you believe that diet impacts skin? I know this is slightly moving outside of your realm, but
No, it's okay. I mean, honestly, I can speak again. When I speak to it, I speak to it from the perspective of somebody with panic disorder whose
yes,
skin
we're going to
is
get into that, definitely, yeah.
by that, right? And that all is connected, and diet is connected to both of those for me. I mean, let's just think about supplements, right? How many supplements do you take a day?
I've started taking quite a few at the moment, actually.
But the thing is that
Don't say they don't work, because even if they don't work, I believe they do, and there's a placebo effect, and there we go.
So I'm not saying supplements are bad, but definitely there are things that we can take in from our food every day. And that helps with many things. Cognitive function, the skin, the body, how we handle stress. Of course, there's a link for me. Of course, there's a link between diet and stress. If you're going to eat junk food every day, you're pounding your body with all sorts of really, really bad things that are going to end up showing on your skin, because it's going to cause inflammation in your body. When there's inflammation in your body, it's going to cause inflammation in your skin. You're going to get cystic acne. You're going to get breakouts. You're going to get those burning sensations. The same if you're eating things that don't accommodate with your gut. Some of us are just not tolerant to, for example, lactose or gluten. If you eat those, then I'm sure if you keep a diary and you go back to it and you understand the symptoms, just like you would keep a diary to know the gut symptoms of what it is that upsets you when you eat it, you're going to see that it also showed up on your skin in some way or another. Some people obviously get hives and all sorts of allergic reactions to certain things that they eat, because everything goes through the gut, everything goes through the blood system, and everything comes back to your biggest organ. It most certainly makes an impact. Same as the things that you drink every day. If you're not going to drink enough water, if you're not going to drink enough good teas and antioxidants and all of those things, it's going to show up in your body. It's going to show up in your skin.
Let's talk about you and how. So you studied law, international law, is that right? And
yes.
You were a lawyer.
I was a lawyer, and I operated my own consultancy in international human rights and criminal law. My PhD was in the laws of war. So I worked in that for probably 14 years, and I loved what I did. I loved my career. I mean, I don't think you commit to doing a PhD if you're not absolutely sure that this is what you want to do with the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, after my diagnosis and after really mismanaging it caught up to me in a big way in 2020, 2021. And I had to make very difficult decisions about how I was going to move forward. And it just didn't make sense for me to be in that line of business anymore. I needed to find a different way to speak to my diagnosis and take ownership of what my life looks like now. And that's really why I changed gears. Many people would ask me, how did you decide to change your career and what gave you the courage to do it? And unfortunately for me, it just wasn't like that. I didn't choose it. It wasn't something I had been thinking about for a long time and had the courage to do. I was forced into it and I was very mad at it for a long time. But now looking back at it, I honestly believe it was a blessing in disguise and I'm glad it worked out the way it did.
No, I rate that, yeah. And it's good that you're honest about the situation, but also I think, yeah, the fact that you've built a skincare brand is bloody cool. So that's definitely something to be very proud of. It was panic disorder you were diagnosed with, and so I'm interested in, because one of the questions I have that I'd like, which I think is exceptionally relevant at the moment, is anxiety in high achieving women. Because I speak to a lot of high achieving women on the podcast, and there's certain patterns that crop up that I've sort of clocked onto. So it's something that I'm interested in talking about. When you were diagnosed, when did you start experiencing panic symptoms?
Well, if you asked me just after I was diagnosed, I would say the day I had my first panic attack. But now that I've had time to reflect back on it, I've always struggled with this. I was the one that grew up always hearing, you're so sensitive. Why are you always so stressed? Why can't you manage your stress? Why don't you meditate? Why don't you, you're such a perfectionist. You take things so personally. I grew up in a family with a lot of really severe generational trauma, a lot of undiagnosed mental illnesses.
Mm-hmm.
And we also had our fair share of unfortunate abusive episodes with trusted family members that lived with us. And the way that I learned to cope with that was making sure that everybody's always happy. There's no chance for anybody to be angry, because if nobody's angry, everything's okay, everything is fine, there's nothing to be stressed about. So I was always super anxious. And people would often mock me as the nervous ninny. And that was really hurtful to me because I thought that I was broken in some way. Like I just didn't function like other people functioned. And of course, I was dealing with all of this situation at home that I'm not talking about to my friends or to others. So they don't understand where it's coming from. Then, of course, I launched into this career in human rights, in which I thought, okay, all my issues are solved because I'm dealing with it on a daily basis, helping other people with the same trauma I went through. And of course, it caught up to me understanding that just because you're sweeping it under the rug and looking at it through a third party lens doesn't mean you're dealing with it.
Yeah.
So it was very, very hard for me to be diagnosed with this because I had such a fear that I would be the same as my family members. Oh, I have it too. I'm the same. But again, educating yourself, understanding the toolbox, there are many different types of anxiety disorders. It's very, very important to be diagnosed with your anxiety disorder. There's a big difference between stress and anxiety. And a panic disorder is, yes, you do have panic attacks, but you are high functioning. So I can go through days and weeks where I'm completely normal. I can handle an intense amount of stress, but then something will trigger me. I will go into complete obsessive behaviors, and then I will have a panic attack. I will be down for a week or two. And then I'll go into the whole thing that I'm afraid to have a panic attack again. So I'll start changing my behaviors. So for example, in the beginning, I stopped eating because I had this sensation of choking. And if I ate, I felt like I was going to choke. So I stopped eating. The other times I stopped leaving the house because I was afraid if I was between too many people and too much sound and noise, it's going to trigger a panic attack.
Yeah.
So that's what it is to me in terms of high achieving women with anxiety. It's so important to me as somebody that struggles with this to send the message out there to say that you have to get diagnosed with this, because you may not have an anxiety disorder. You may just be going through a really difficult time and you need some guidance for this time in your life, which is wonderful because you can deal with it. But the amount of how much we read the word anxiety in our society, to me, is alarming, because I feel like it's underscoring what people who have been diagnosed with these various types of disorders really go through. So if you're going to say that you have anxiety and it comes with whatever it is that you're facing within your life, just go do all the tests, get yourself diagnosed, be in the right space to heal, and understand whether you really do have an anxiety disorder or not.